we are in the endocrine system. This slide shows you all the organs of the endocrine system. So apparently all these organs release hormones, and hormones need to be carried by blood. So start from your brain, your hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and to your heart. Your heart releases a hormone called AMP. That's the hormone help your body to increase the urine production. So you work in the kidney, and its function is to regulate your blood pressure. So when your blood pressure is too high due to you have too much water, AMP will release. So even the heart is an endocrine organ. And your digestive systems, they use a lot of hormones to communicate with each other. And your gonads, and they release sex hormones. So a big part of your body, you have a lot of organs belong to the endocrine system. When we talk about the hormones, hormones are the chemical molecule released by endocrine organs. They need to be carried by blood. So that's the traditional definition. So the hormone need to be carried by blood. And we have steroid hormone and peptide hormone, mainly these two categories. And steroid hormones, they're made of steroid. So like the sex hormone, they're steroid hormone. And they need to be carried by blood, and blood is plasma. Plasma is mainly water. So they have difficulty to be carried by blood. So steroid hormone, they need to have the plasma protein to help them to transport transported in the blood. So your plasma proteins, you have antibody, you have transport protein. Their main function is to transport steroid hormone. Peptide hormone, they're made of amino acid, and they have no problem to be dissolved in blood, so they don't need transporter proteins to help them. And the third group is called amine. So amine is made of one amino acid. So they're either made of tyrosine or tryptophan. And you say they're made of amino acid, they should behave like peptides. Not exactly. We have some amine that behave exactly like peptide hormone, like epinephrine, norepinephrine. These new neurotransmitter, neurohormones, they released by the autonomic nervous system, and they behave exactly like peptide hormone. We also have amines, T3, T4. These four hormones that are released by the thyroid gland. They regulate metabolism. So hyperthyroidism, there's increased T3, T4 release. And your metabolizing rate is pretty high. And these two amines, they actually behave like steroid hormones. So it depends. That's why we put them into three different categories. But behaviorally, we only have these two. Either they behave like steroid hormone, they need a plasma protein to carry them, or they behave like a peptide hormone. They don't need plasma protein to carry them in the blood. And some of the concept of these two hormones, we actually talked about them in the previous lecture when we talked about the membrane receptor and intracellular receptor in the signal transduction. Steroid hormones, yes, they need to be carried by the plasma protein to be transported in the blood. But when they reach the target cells, steroid is a lipid. They have no problem diffuse through the cell membrane. So they can use simple diffusion to go through the cell membrane. And their receptor is intracellular receptor. So their receptors are in the cytosol, sometimes inside the nucleus. And when steroid hormone bind with the receptor in the cytosol, the receptor can go into the nucleus and trigger transcription, translation. So usually steroid hormone's response is new protein synthesis. So we talked about that in the previous lecture. For peptide hormones, they have no problem to be carried by blood, so they don't need plasma protein to carry them. But when they reach the target cells, these guys have difficulty to go through the cell membrane. So you could not put the receptor in the cytosol. You have to put the receptor in the cell membrane. They have the membrane receptor. And when the peptide hormone bind with the receptor, their usually response is signal transduction. They will activate the G protein. So the receptor is a G protein coupled receptor. And the G protein will activate protein kinase A, will activate second messenger, cyclic AMP first, then the other kinase like protein kinase A, other kinase. So we call it signal transduction. So students need to combine what we learned here with the previous lecture, how these hormones being carried by blood, and also how they bind with the receptor, what kind of receptor, and what kind of response. So you have to combine this lecture with the previous lecture together. Most of the hormones in the body, they belong to the peptide hormone category. So if I give you hormones, you don't know what this hormone is, you're probably going to put your money on the peptide, because most of them are peptide. Small portion of them are steroid hormone. So steroid hormone mainly come from adrenal cortex. So adrenal glands, we'll talk about adrenal glands. Adrenal glands, they stay above kidney. And you have the inside called adrenal medulla and outside called adrenal cortex. The adrenal medulla is completely nervous system. So they are part of the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic. They release epinephrine, norepinephrine. And here we focus on the outside part, we call the adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex is the source of steroid hormone. They release 3 different kinds of steroid hormone. Androgen, the male sex hormone. Testosterone, that's the main androgen. Aldosterone, that's the hormones for sodium reabsorption. We'll talk about that in the last unit when we talk about water regulation. And its function, aldosterone, it regulates sodium reabsorption. But when you take sodium back, water follow. Water always go to dilute the solute. So its indirect effect is water reabsorption. It's released from the adrenal cortex as well. And the third one is stress hormone, cortisol. So when you're stressed out or you see a bear coming towards you, your body gonna activate the HPA axis. We'll talk about it today. And it will trigger the stress hormone cortisol release. So all 3 of them released from the adrenal cortex. Next one, gonad. So gonad are the male is testes and the female's ovaries. So they release sex hormone. They also come from the steroid hormones. And also placenta. Placenta is a temporary organ. You only have placenta when you're pregnant, so only in the female. And during pregnancy, the first trimester, so pregnancy has 3 trimesters. The first trimester, the most important thing is to grow placenta. So placenta includes cells from the mom, that's the uterus cells, and the cells from the fetus. So they're gonna fuse together and grow a placenta. Placenta, well, we know the function is like provide the blood network. So the fetus need to get oxygen from placenta. And not just that, also placenta gonna release the female sex hormone. So it releases a high level of mainly progesterone. That's the hormone to tell the brain, hey, you have a baby there, so don't bother ovulating, because, well, the female's egg is very precious. Every month you only have 1 egg, and once you release it, you lose it. And that's why during pregnancy, since the uterus being taken, there's no reason to keep having egg. So the high dosage of the female sex hormone can ask the brain, hey, stop releasing egg. And the birth control pill take advantage of it. So it's a high dosage of female sex hormone. It fool your brain, make your brain think you're pregnant. And that's one function of placenta. And also the progesterone will help to maintain the inner wall of the inner lining of the uterus, and make it placentas, make it pretty strong, so provide a good support, oxygen support for the embryo to develop. And during the whole pregnancy, you found the female's progesterone, estrogen, progesterone, their sex hormone level just keep increasing, and that's placenta. And after delivery, after the baby come out, after 5 minutes, placenta will come out. So it's temporary organ. So all these are the source of steroid hormone. And the others pretty much peptide hormones. So from your brain, the other organs we didn't talk about, they're mainly the peptide hormone. So this table tells you the difference between the steroid hormone and peptide hormone. So it combined what we learned today, how they've been carried by blood, and with what we learned last time, the signal transduction. So for the peptide hormone, like I tell you, they can be dissolved in, can be carried by blood, and they were released by exocytosis. So they can be put in those vesicles and released when they're ready. They dissolve in the plasma, so they don't need transport protein. And receptor, so this part is based on what we learned last time. So the receptor is a membrane receptor, and usually their response is the second messenger system trigger the signal transduction. And steroid hormone, they are made on demand. So because they are made of steroids, so you could not make them and put them in the vesicle. Vesicle are those like small membrane bubbles. They're gonna diffuse out. So you could not pre-make them and keep them there. So they have been made by demand. They go through the cell through simple diffusion because the vesicle won't be able to keep them there. And they need a transport protein to be transported in plasma because they are made of lipid. Their half-life is long. Receptor in the cytosol, sometimes in the nucleus. And usually their response is trigger the gene expression, produce new protein. When we look at the hormone interaction, it's never like one hormone trigger one response. It's always a combination, and they can have interaction. And we put their interaction into 3 different categories. The first one is called the synergism. Excuse me. Synergism is like 1 + 1 bigger than 2. The definition of synergism is both hormones have function, and when you combine them together, their function doubles, and that's synergism. For example, testosterone, growth hormone, both of them have function in the cell growth. So during puberty, your growth hormone release is gonna make your bone grow taller, longer. You're gonna grow taller. Also, sex hormone release. So both of them have the function, and when you have both of them, your function doubles, so you grow a lot during puberty. Permissiveness is you have 2 hormones. The first hormone have totally no function, but you need the first hormone to be there for the second hormone to express its full function. For example, thyroid hormone and growth hormone. So I use 1 + 1 = 1 because the first hormone have no function. It's the second hormone, but the second hormone need to express its full function with the first hormone's permission. So thyroid hormone T3, T4, these 2 hormones, their function is metabolism, so they have no function for the growth. But in order for the growth hormone to fully express its function, you need thyroid hormone to be there. So one example is if this person have hypothyroidism during puberty, they tend to be shorter. And the reason is hypothyroidism, so their thyroid hormone level is lower than normal. And their growth hormone, even though they have normal growth hormone, they just won't be able to fully express this function. So that's permissivism. The third one is antagonism. Antagonism is 1 + 1 = 0 because these 2 hormones, they cancel each other out. It doesn't mean they have the opposite signal transduction pathway. They can work on different receptors. They can work on even different targets. As long as their function, we focus on the function. As long as their function cancel each other out, we call it antagonism. And the example is insulin and glucagon. So these 2 hormones, they work on the blood sugar, but their target is different. Insulin work on the skeletal muscle, so ask skeletal muscle to take glucose in, so blood sugar level become lower. After you have a big meal, insulin release. And glucagon is increase your blood sugar. Its function is in the liver. Liver is a big source of glycogen. That's the polysaccharide. And after you release glucagon, it's gonna turn those glycogen into glucose, and your blood sugar levels start to increase. So they don't work on the same target. They just have the opposite function, and we call them antagonism. Okay, let's take a break.